as a friend of peace. We will be one when we all leave peace prints on the world. All will be one when we leave peace prints on everyone and everywhere. All will be one when war is done for everyone and everywhere. So let's make a promise and keep the promise to live as a friend of peace. We will be one when we all leave peace prints on the So let's make a promise and keep the promise to live as a friend of peace. We will be one when we all leave peace prints on the world. All will be one when we leave peace prints on everyone and everywhere. All will be one when war is done for everyone and everywhere. So let's make a promise and keep the promise to live as a friend of peace. We will be one when we all leave peace prints on the world. We will be one when we all leave peace prints on the world. May the light of peace begin to burn more brightly in me. May the light of peace begin to burn more brightly in thee. Then God's peace will shine through the light of we. May the light of peace begin to burn more brightly in me. May the light of peace begin to burn more brightly in thee. Then God's peace will shine through the light of we. May the light of peace begin to burn more brightly in me. May the light of peace begin to burn more brightly in thee. Then God's peace will shine through the light of we. with me? Will you walk with me down the path toward a place where violence is no more? Walk with me. Will you walk with me down the path toward a place where together and forever we will live in peace? Walk with me. Will you walk with me down the path toward a place where violence is no more? Walk with me. Will you walk with me down the path toward a place where together and forever we will live in peace? We will live in peace. 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 All will be one when we leave peace prints on everyone and everywhere. All will be one when war is done for everyone and everywhere. So let's make burn more brightly in me. May the light of peace begin to burn more brightly in thee. Then God's peace will shine through the light of we. May the light of peace begin to burn more brightly in me. May the light of peace begin to burn more brightly in thee. Then God's peace will shine through the light of we. May the light of peace begin to burn more brightly in me. May the light of peace begin to burn more brightly in thee. Then God's peace will shine through the light of we.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Bridget Sperduto, Executive Director of the Well Spirituality Center. We are a ministry of the Congregation of St. Joseph, and we are very excited to be collaborating with IPP. I would like to welcome all of you who came in through the IPP network, the Well community, and those of you who are part of Dana's radio community. And I would especially like to welcome Renaldo Hudson and Helen Prejean back to the Well. Helen lost her brother Louis to COVID-19 last Sunday, and I invite us to just take a moment of silence to send Helen love and compassion, and for her family as well. Our coming together today for this shared purpose ignites a fire for peace and justice. So I can't thank you enough for your attendance. And now, before turning the mic over to Dana Divine, I'd like to briefly introduce her. She is a delightful, warm, and faith-filled, talented artist, songwriter, composer, and TV and music producer. She is also a radio personality, and she presently is heard all over 200 countries and a weekday morning host for urbanpraiseradio.org. And so to you, Dana.
Oh. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. As I've been introduced, Dana Divine. I am at 95.1 FM. I do the Sunday morning show. Please be sure to tune in this Sunday. I'm so excited to be here to have this conversation on hope and redemption. Hope is so necessary. It's a necessary thing because it helps us break through bars of despair. Determination, resilience, cunning smarts, self-protection, and never forgetting who you are or who you can be. And what are steps to redemption? Not in the religious sense, but in the human sense. Steps to correct a past wrong or exchange something for something else. How do we redeem ourselves? Do we outwit despair? How can we do that and not let it break us down? How can we find that special music inside of ourselves? Face the past, let it go. Let real friends help us. Freedom has a new face, and we can be the best versions of ourselves. It's more than possible, and we can do it at any time. I am so excited about the conversation today. We have hope and redemption here today. Sister Helen Prejean. She busted the door down and opened up and exposed to everybody how inequitable and how unfair capital punishment is. She wrote a book, Dead Man Walking, that became a movie, a play, an opera, and continues to inspire and reveal the truths about capital punishment. Our second panelist and amazing panelist, Renaldo Hudson, a walking billboard of hope and redemption. You'll see for yourself in this upcoming conversation. After serving 37 years in prison, hope is clearly spelled on his face. He is educated, he pulled himself right up, earned a degree in divinity, and is here today to talk about what redemption and hope really looks like. So let's get started. I know that you all have questions, and you are welcome to ask any questions in the chat here this morning. And before I get started, I do want to thank our sponsors, Kirkland and Ellis, and the Well Spirituality Center. We just want to thank them for providing this opportunity to have this conversation. So I'm going to look, we're going to move from chat to camera. So this is technology, and sometimes things take a while, but I would like to get to a first question. And it looks like we have a question from me. I have a question. Sister Prejean, tell me what give me the first idea, when the baby jumped inside of you and let you know something was wrong. Tell me about that first time when you knew, your spirit said, mm-mm.
Well, that's because I'm a member of the Congregation of St. Joseph, and we had a conference in Terre Haute, Indiana, right where all the federal executions are happening right now. And I just want to hold up Lisa Montgomery as one of them, a tortured, really mentally ill woman who's getting ready to be executed. Her clemency papers are sitting on some empty desk where only President Trump can save her. I just hold her up with 2 other people are going to be killed. So it was Terre Haute, Indiana, and there was a conference. And I had been struggling with this whole thing of following Jesus and social justice. See, I kept saying, look, we're nuns, we're not social workers. How are we ever going to do all this social justice? And that was an awakening. I mean, I awoke then to that the gospel of Jesus meant you had to get involved in the struggles for justice. And that led me to move into the St. Thomas housing projects. And while I was serving there, where African-American people for the first time became my peers and began to teach me, I got an invitation to write. A death row inmate wrote him. His name was Patrick Saunier. I witnessed his execution, and I have been a witness ever since that we have to end the death penalty.
So, Mr. Hudson, did you see the movie Dead Man Walking?
I lived Dead Man Walking, so the movie wasn't that something that awakened me to the issue of the death penalty. I did see the movie though, but living it is so different than writing about it. And so my thing is sharing with people that the death penalty is a horrible thing. And when you face death, you've really learned that you're so vulnerable. And so one of the things I love about Helen is that Helen got right in the fight. And so it's easy to love someone that decide to love you at your lowest state. And so when I was at my lowest state, that's what made Dead Man Walking relevant to me. I saw this little bitty old Caucasian lady, and well, you're so young, I shouldn't call you little old, but because you're so beautiful. But I saw this lady like caring that like she didn't look like me. And so I was trying to figure out, why do she care? And that's what made Dead Man Walking relevant to me. And it allowed me to be able to see people differently than the people that I was seeing prior to that, which were saying, let him die. He's worthy of death. There's nothing redeemable about him. He shouldn't have any hope, you know? And I'm like, but there's something in me that's better than my worst mistake, my worst decision. And so I am so happy that I'm alive today to be able to say to people that redemption is possible. Like, so hope like fits in an actual body. And so when I see Helen, I see hope and I see redemption. When I look in the mirror, I see hope, I see redemption. And so I'm excited to say to people, look in the mirror and decide what you want to represent to the world.
So can you start at the beginning for us, Mr. Hudson? Start at the beginning of your story for those who don't know it.
Well, I don't think we have enough time for me to start at the beginning of my story. But what I would like to do is ask Helen a question, right? Because we will share our story, but I think it's so important that Helen, I say to you, so like, first of all, I'm so sorry for your loss, but I want you to know that I'm your brother now. So you have a new brother. So please know that you're not alone. On this side, in Illinois, over at IPP, you can call over there and say, hey, put my brother on the phone. It's Helen. And so I want to make sure I say that to you, right? But I want to know why you care, Helen. Like, why did you decide you wanted to go into a death row space when it's so easy to be afraid of us?
Well, you know, you ever heard of Sneaky Jesus? You know about Sneaky Jesus? You know,
absolutely.
Why don't you do this little thing? I want to invite you to be on this little committee and all. Next thing you know, your little boat is in this, head toward this waterfall, you're in these water rapids. And I got that invitation to write A Man on Death Row. You have to understand that in my awakening, and I believe it's God's grace that wakes us up. You know, we can't claim that we made ourselves enlightened, and God's grace wakes us up. I got an invitation to write A Man on Death Row. I thought all I was going to be doing was writing letters. I didn't know that I was going to be with him when they killed him in the electric chair, and that I would see it. That's the fire in my book. I wrote this book, Renaldo, about my life and waking up, and it's called River of Fire. The fire part was watching this man, Patrick Saunier, in a premeditated way, being strapped into a chair and jolted with electricity until he was dead. And I witnessed that death. There's a saying in Latin America, what the eye does not see, the heart cannot feel. And it was being brought there where I thought I was only going to be writing letters. I didn't know I'd be in that execution chamber. And then when I came out of that execution chamber, that night, middle of the night, it was dark. 90% of Louisiana people supported the death penalty that night. But I had been there, and I was called in to witness. And so that's what led to my giving talks. And that's why I wrote Dead Man Walking and gave it over to the world. A book is like a child. You write a book, you turn it over, it has legs, it goes where it wants to go. And then God took that book, and that's what we've seen. But
Yes, ma'am.
that's it. Well, you know about this, and you know about fire. You know about light bulbs going off.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You
Dana,
know,
go ahead.
absolutely. Like one of the things I think about when I think about my story, I love sharing my story with people, not so that it celebrates, because I have a really, really traumatic background, going from, child abuse to sexual abuse that men never talk about. Like we're not told, we can't say, hey, I was touched or I was abused, I was beat, I was psychologically abused. People don't like hearing that. People say, well, you're making excuses. No, it's my story. My story is that at a young age, my twin was killed. I believe he was pushed down the stairs. So my identical twin, I lost him at a young age. At the age of 15, right? My brother decided to kill my family. So he killed my auntie, killed my little cousin, shot me and 6 other family members. And so I did not have any wraparound services as they talk about trauma today. I had a family that was broken up, angry, bitter, already psychologically damaged. And I was put back into that space. So I attempted to self-medicate. So I began to use drugs. And so I wanted to fantasize. I wanted to live in a world that it didn't exist. The world that I was in was so painful and so torturous, but I couldn't explain that to anyone. How do you walk up to someone and say, hey, listen, don't be afraid of me, but my brother just shot everybody and I look like him. And so when I walked into my family home, people were frightened of me because I looked like my brother.
Wow.
So I had to carry the weight of my brother and me. And so I attempted to self-medicate and started using PCP and started using, and for a short period of time, I was able to live in that fantasy world, which led me to the horrible death of Mr. Peterson. Because I had a fantasy. I fantasized that this poor, poor man, Mr. Folk Peterson, who deserves so much better than what happened to him. So the best thing I can do when I think about it is, Renaldo, make sure you represent the best part of humanity for the rest of your life, that you might be a witness, man, that despite the horrible thing you've done, you can do so much better. And then you can encourage other people that no matter how far you fall down, because you're going to fall in life. But if you fall on your back, you can look up. And if you can look up, you can get up. And so that encourages me, that inspires me, even though it makes my heart ache to think about, man, I'm the person responsible for that death. But now I get to say, I'm responsible for saying to that person, be it young or older, hey, listen, you can be better than you were yesterday. Even though you did something that you're feeling really, really bad about, the way you prove that you're no longer, that you're really sorry, never turn back to that behavior. And I'm excited to say that my record reflected. And it was only when IPP and the mighty work of the Illinois Prison Project came in and told my story to the right governor, the 7th governor. Even though people like to celebrate Ryan, with all due respect, he changed my sentence from death to life without the possibility of parole, which meant he said, I don't want to be the one to kill you, but I don't mind if you die in prison. And I'm saying that's not God's best. God's best is, he said in the word, he said, if you turn from your wicked ways and your unrighteous thoughts, I'll show you the sure mercies of David, and I will abundantly pardon you. And so I was excited when I got the phone call, and the wardens in Danville Correctional Center called me to the gym at 5 o'clock at night. And we have a program that I help to facilitate and to establish called the Building Block. And they called me pretending like they wanted me to extend the program to another wing. And I was having a headache that day. I didn't really want to be there, but I was like, I'm forced to be there because I don't belong to myself. I'm a servant. So when you're called, you have to go. And so anyway, I was like, man, I don't want to be here. And they say, listen, but you teach, you're a teacher, you're an example to people to not make excuses, right? And so, make a long story short, they put the phone on the desk, and it was this person that I knew the voice, but I couldn't really understand it. It was Jennifer Sobel. She said, Renaldo, the governor has commuted your sentence. And I'm telling you, my world changed instantly because I was like, are you seriously telling me I no longer have to carry the burden and the shame of saying I don't belong to humanity?
Yeah.
Because when you're in prison, it's a sewage. It's the worst place you can put any human being.
Yeah.
And you're never valued.
Yeah.
So now I'm free to preach and to teach and to share stages with you, Helen.
Yeah. Dana, I know you're the MC of this. Can I just say one thing to him before we move to the next question?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's about Governor Ryan. It's like you had two Pontius Pilates in your life,
Yes.
both of whom gave you a break. And I want, this is George Ryan's book.
Yes.
And he went through his own conversion to come to that point where he recognized when the 13th wrongfully convicted person was brought into his office, he said, this thing is broken. And that was a very brave thing he did, Renaldo, and of conscience, because he had been part of putting the death penalty back in Illinois. And to come to a point of saying, he tried twice to present reform projects to the Illinois legislature. They rejected it. He knew he had the power. And so he made that decision to commute every sentence on death row. It included in that decision his neighbor whom he loved, who had been brutally killed. And the murderer of his neighbor was also on death row, and he made no exceptions. He was your first benign, providential Pontius Pilate. And then the second was Governor Pritzker, who then released you or commuted your sentence for you to be released after the Illinois Prison Project got in there. And it's just God's providence working in your life. You doing your part, but then boom, it is just pure grace that comes in. Because how many human beings are still living out their sentences in prisons across this country? And God freed you up because you got work to do. And it's great to hear your story and to hear about your awakening. The only other thing I want to say before we turn it over is about the light bulbs. Because I had a light bulb go off in my head about the light bulbs in your life. And isn't it true that the reason you went to Mr. Peterson's apartment that day was under the pretext of fixing a light bulb?
That is the truth. But I'll tell you, it's important because like those details are very important, but the light bulb is symbolic. And I think it's important that people understand that a changed mind.
That's
like
what I want to say. Renaldo,
yes,
that's what I want to say. When you
yes,
heard Louis Farrakhan say, what are you good for? Who's going to care about you when you die? You said, it's like a light bulb. That moment of grace, like, yeah, what is my life about? What am I doing?
yes.
And we can all just take heart from that because we all have our moments where we know we need to wake up and God wakes us up and the light bulb goes off. So those are the two light bulbs, the Louis Farrakhan light bulb, and then the light bulb pretense that brought you to murder Mr. Peterson in such a terrible way. And you know how much he suffered because you stabbed him. How many times? 60 times over several hours. It has to grieve your heart to know that. But you have been, you carried that and you've changed and you're a spark to all of us that we can do it too.
Well, I think it's important because it's very easy to look at the worst thing in a person and it can be amplified very easy. That's what prosecutors do so well.
Yeah.
They take the worst thing of you and they amplify it.
Yeah.
Here's what I love to do is I want to honor Mr. Peterson, not by talking about how horribly he died, because I live with that. Yeah. And I can never erase that, no matter how much good I do. But what I do know is that I'm able to say to some other young person, hey, listen, you may be thinking about doing something horrible. Don't do it. It costs me the shame of knowing I can never wash that away. But what I can do is be better. What I can do is be a constant message of people that no one deserves to be cast away. No one deserves, like, I don't believe that there's one person that can't be redeemed. I just don't. Now, I don't have the power to determine that, but I do have the voice to say, hey, listen, I know how dark my heart was. I know that when you talk about the light bulb experience from the Minister Louis Farrakhan to other experiences, the warden who said to me, you need to start taking responsibility, but all of their words did not change me. I had to have a made up mind. My mind, there's nothing stronger than a made up mind. And Dr. King said it so profoundly. He said, you have to be about real change, you have to have a tough mind, but a soft heart. And even though I'm responsible for the death of Mr. Peterson, my heart has always been a soft heart. And I lost it. I lost it in the trauma. I lost it in the pain. And so my humanity was cleaned off because someone came and said, Renaldo, you're better than that. Renaldo, you're not this monster that people want you. Okay, come out, pull the monster out. And they did that to me for years. Yeah. And they tried to shame me. Yeah. And they put me in a green monster suit and said, look at the monster who can never be trusted. Yeah. But then I woke up and said, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I'm better than that. Yeah. I'm gonna let it shine that hope can live even on death row. So I did not start changing because I was expecting to be released. I started changing because I didn't want to die being good for nothing. I didn't want to be the person that no one cried for when I laid down for my last time. And so in that process of hope, in that process of redemption, I found Renaldo, who was lost in the trauma. And so it's like being in a sewer your whole life. It smells. There's all kind of nasty stuff floating by you, but then the light come on. And so when the light came on, I saw the things that I won't mention, the feces and the urine and all that stuff. And I saw this and I saw me. And I said, wait a minute, there's a ladder over here. And if I put one hand up and one foot up, I can pull up. And then when someone reached down and said, I'll help you because you're trying to help yourself. I said, really? And so you mean to tell me that there's people that want to help? You mean to tell me everyone don't want to talk about your monster? You know you're a monster. How dare you, monster, monster, monster. And you'll begin to believe it. As a man thinketh in his heart, so shall it be. It's like digging for diamonds. You got to dig down. It's like digging for gold. You got to dig down. So when you start to look at the potential, I am a potential of what can be. And so I'm so grateful that I'm openly, I've been confessing from the beginning, I'm the person responsible for the death of Mr. Peterson. I'm ashamed of that. But I'm not ashamed of redemption. I'm not ashamed that despite my worst act, I can be better. And I don't care who don't like that, because hope has to live. People have to know that you can get up, you can do better. People have to know that, sister. And so I'm grateful that God allowed me to be one of his representatives. I'm glad and I'm honored that IPP said, come work with us. Not only do we want to pull you out of prison, we want to show the world what potential looks like. Yeah, great. Yeah, so I don't know if you know this, but I'm also an ordained minister. Well, okay. So I can preach the word, but I have hope. I have hope, sister.
Renaldo, ordained or not, the truth comes out of your mouth. Whether you got a certificate hanging on your wall or not, truth Amen. Comes out of your mouth, and that's the fire and the fire we need. So Dana, you better take the cards again. Right.
Well, listen, when you talk about hope, Renaldo, and you had a change of heart clearly before you were released. You made a change. You crossed the line somewhere before 12 weeks ago. Am I right? So I want to ask you about the prisoners that are in prison. And you talk about hope. Well, when you're incarcerated, what does hope mean to that person? And spiritual distress. If you can, Sister Prejean, talk about spiritual distress and what that means to you, but talk about hope as far as the prisoners who are still in prison.
Well, I can tell you that what I know for a fact is that everyone that I've met in prison is looking for hope. They're looking for something to grab hold to. They're looking for someone to say, hey, you know what? I will take and champion your case. I will take and champion your cause. And so I love the fact that right now in the great state of Illinois, there's a movement for actual change and that it is inspiring hope. You know, I can't say it enough. Like people say, well, you say IBP too much. I can't say it enough. Hope has inspired 34 men and women who had life without the possibility of parole. They had no hope. This is a sentence, life without the possibility of hope. But this group came in and said, this is not right. And this is the true ministry. When you put in the work is hard work. And people lose sight of that. That if you're going to have hope, if you're going to inspire hope, then you have to have someone help you turn the light on. And I know specifically the work of IPP and the Well is the type of work that brings hope. I don't know if you noticed, Dana, but in 2001, I was in an interview when Governor Ryan commuted my death sentence. And I was on, it was me and a young guy named Ronald Kleiner. And Ronald Kleiner is fighting for his innocence. And I was sitting there saying, I'm guilty. And they tried to like beat me up, say, well, look, Renaldo, Mr. Kleiner may one day be released because he's innocent, but you confessed of this horrible crime. You'll never walk out of prison. And I reminded him in 2001 what I knew, which was the word. And it said, hope deferred makes the heart sick. But when it comes, it is like a tree of life. And so I did not know, and I even told him back then, I do not know what will happen, but I will not live without hope. So you can believe what you want to believe, but I chose to believe. And guess what? I'm sitting here as a representative of what? Hope.
What gave you that strength?
For me, it's my belief. I believe as I was sitting in that death row cell, and I went through my personal transformation. My transformation occurred because I fell in love with a man in a cell. And it wasn't a homosexual act. It was a Christian love. I looked and saw Jesus come into my cell and say, Renaldo, I love you. That's what worked for me. And I believed it. I believed it. And from that moment to this moment, I've never turned back. And I've been able to smile because I said, hey, someone saw the best of me and not just the worst of me. And that's what I want to remind people. Yes, you must own your responsibility. Yes, you have to step up and own, your stuff. We live in an adversarial environment, mitigating and aggravating, right? Yeah. However, too often people are not given a chance to let their story be heard. Right. And when you begin to hear people's story, you'll learn that, oh, this is what happened. It's like if your car stopped running, the little light come on, you don't take a hammer and start beating it, you take it to a repairman. What we do, right? What we do is someone get broken and do something, really, really horrible, and we say, let's exterminate them.
Destroy it.
Right? No, let's figure out what went wrong so we can fix it and put them back on the assembly line of hope.
So, Sister Prejean, spiritual distress. So you're in prison and you're hoping, and year after year after year, and nobody wants to champion your case. And so now you're in spiritual distress.
Yeah, Renaldo explained that really well. Prison, you are just considered disposable human waste. You're a monster. And to be able to realize, boy, this is true redemption from the inside out, that I'm more than the worst act I ever did. And then Renaldo begins to feel the life and the hope, and like he took it step by step, one hand on that ladder, one foot on that step. What strikes me, Renaldo, as you're speaking about this, is how so many people in our country right now are in spiritual distress. Things have been going very badly in our country. And I meet a lot of people through these Zoom sessions and everything, and people are so overwhelmed by all that's going wrong that they feel paralyzed and they go, what can one person do? I think hope is an active verb. I'm an English teacher. It's an active verb. And when you wake up and you put your hand on either a ladder or a rope and begin to be involved with the group, look at the Illinois Prison Project. Well, if we would hear the whole story of the Illinois Prison Project and how it started with a small group of people that, and look what they were facing. Prison reform is just huge, huge, the need for prison reform. We're the biggest incarcerated in the world, throwing people away with these sentences. And that tiny group of people got in there and they started acting. They started doing stuff. They started speaking out. They started being a voice, and the hope grew. But I just want to say spiritual distress. Our whole country right now is going through a really severe crisis. I mean, we have just experienced our president who incited people to violence, and they stormed the Capitol. And we're afraid for violence happening across the different state legislatures. Through that, speaking of falsehoods and inciting people and the hatred that's out there, which has been augmented by the social media. And here comes Renaldo and says, you take a step. And people are looking for hope. Not just people in prison are looking for hope. Our whole country, in many ways, people are looking for, what can I do? How can I not be a paralyzed, overwhelmed person, but what can I do to be a part of this democracy and help make my country better?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need to all ask ourselves. Helen, tell me about Kankakee.
Oh yeah, well these two little connections I wanted to do that came to mind, Renaldo, when I was looking over stuff. So this man that figured in your life, this George Ryan guy, he described himself as, I'm just a pharmacist from Kankakee. And didn't you live at Kankakee at different times when you were shuffled around as a kid?
I did.
There you go. So that's another little connection that you got with this man, the new kind of Pontius Pilate in your life with authority that can change your life. So thank you, Dana, for bringing up the little Kankakee thing.
Well, it looks like you two both have a lot of overlap in common. Lots of overlap, Sister Helen and Renaldo. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, well, he's now my brother. I that touched me, Renaldo. Just losing Louis, my little brother, and now here today you say I am your brother. That touches me deeply.
And listen, so, go ahead.
I just want to say, listen, I know that everybody don't want to do the hug, but I'm gonna send you a hug through this thing and let you know at the end of the day, love, listen, I keep telling everybody love is going to win over hate. Listen, I'm the heart chaser, and I'm telling you, love wins over hate. Perfect love casts out all fear. And I'm a believer in that. I stand on that, and I'm not bagging away from it. And when I see you, we actually look alike, if you ask me. Look at these beautiful faces. Like, it's almost like, you know what I'm saying? We twins. And people trying to figure out, like, how did that happen? Like, how did the world, like, how did Helen and Renaldo become twins? I don't know.
Look, you just made a profound mystical statement that we are twins. I love it. I love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Dana, you got two live ones on your hands.
Yeah, I see. So Sister Helen, I know that you go into prisons and provide spiritual care for people. Are you still?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So tell me how you bring spiritual care to your prison.
Okay, and I'm gonna change the verb on you from bring spiritual care to receive spiritual care as well.
Okay.
My man on death row, I accompany people one at a time. I've been present in 6 executions of human beings. And the next person I took after Dobie Gillis Williams had been killed is a man by the name of Manuel Ortiz. He's from El Salvador. He's innocent. He's the 7th person I've been with. He's the 3rd innocent one. That's how broken this thing is. For every 9 people we have executed in this country, 1 has been released. 1 out of 9. And Manuel is one of those innocent people on Louisiana's death row where you almost die in the summer from the heat. He has been through so much. And so when I go to see him, it's not my just giving to him. He shows me a man of courage. He's going on 30 years. He goes, Sister Helen, he got this great little Spanish accent. He's from El Salvador. Sister Helen, I came in here a young man. I am getting to be an old man. And so when I visit him and we talk, I come away uplifted because I go back to my life, all the agency I have in my life to do things. He's sitting in that cell. How is he not dissolved? And he has great devotion to Our Lady of Guadalupe. And she represents the merciful face of God, the Blessed Mother in the devotions. She is the mercy of God for us, the feminine, motherly mercy of God. And she, in his prayer and his faith, has sustained him. So I can't say when I go to visit him, Dana, that I give him, now he knows I'm in his corner. He knows I will be his advocate. He needed a new lawyer. We got a new lawyer. He just said to me, can you get this expert in DNA to help me in the country? And I went in there and I said, yes, I will. So my accompanying him means that I am his advocate as well. I will be his hands. I will be his voice. I will be the one. If he can't get out there and do it, I'm going to do it. And so we're going on almost 20 years as I take one person and I accompany them to the end.
Wow. Wow.
Hey, can I just hone it just a second? Because I'm sorry, go ahead, Dana, because
No, go ahead.
No, because when I was on death row, people don't realize this. I actually sat on death row through every execution. Wow. From Charlie Walker, who was the first person executed in Illinois during when they reestablished the death penalty in the state of Illinois. Charlie Walker decided, he said, I will not let you torture me by giving me life without the possibility of parole, and let me sit in a cell and rot, which is a cruel, I understand people support it, but it is a cruel sentence to say to someone, you don't have any hope. You have no reason to wake up other than to be punished for your crime. Right. And I'm not saying that people don't commit crimes to make people feel that way, but I lived it. And I lived with people that experienced it. And I am duty bound to say to the world, that is a horrible, horrible thing. And so what we have to figure out is, how do we say, and to go back, let me finish. So from Charlie Walker to the guy you talked about, Helen, which I remember this stuff very, very, like I'm looking at you right now. Mm-hmm. When an execution occurred, I would turn my television off, I would turn my radio off, and I would turn my ears and my heart on. Yeah. And I said, they saw no difference than in among any of us, from John Wayne Gacy to Renaldo Hudson. They wanted to poison me to death. Yeah. And so they said the last execution that led Governor Ryan, I do recall it, Andrew Cocorera was next door to me before they took him out and executed him and sent him to be executed. And so I used to talk to Andrew. And so I always remind people, it's like, I know how much I made it through. I know that there were so many people that didn't make it here. And so someone needs to say that, hey, okay, the courts legally said that they should be exterminated for exterminating someone, which is in itself like an oxymoron. Like, I'll teach you killing is wrong by killing you. Yeah, Thank you for teaching me that makes sense. That don't make sense. Yeah. What makes sense is you say, how do we fix broken things? If you will recycle a bottle, you will recycle a can, but you won't recycle a man, you won't recycle a woman. How dare you? Yeah. How dare you say, and then you stand up and you put crosses up and you put stars up, and then you find little people who may not even have faith, but they know it's wrong. Yeah. That's why I tell people, don't try to make it a religious thing. It's a right thing. Yeah. It's a moral thing. And so it's not that, because I've seen the difference. I've seen people preach me to the execution chamber. And then I've seen people without faith say, but wait a minute, it's something wrong with that.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of the story of Jesus when Jesus saw the adulterous woman that they caught in the act of adultery. So she was guilty. And Jesus looked at all of these smart people, you know, religious philosophers, and they had their doctrines and their degrees. But he looked at him and said, he without sin cast the first stone. And so that reminded me, that's one of the things, sister, that woke me up also on death row to fight the death penalty. I said, wait a minute, if Jesus fought death, I'm gonna fight death. And he said the last curse was death. And so I'm inspired by the word to fight for every life.
Yeah.
I'm gonna fight for every life I can fight for. And it comes through using our words, using these platforms to say to people, hey, listen, I'm sorry for not doing the right thing. I'll own it.
Yeah.
And give me a hand.
And using our words, but then getting involved in the movements where change is happening. Like Black Lives Matter. Look at the role of African-American people that made in this election, especially led by African-American women like Stacey Abrams in Georgia. Yes. We changed the Senate.
Our blue state. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, look, people being active in community, because you can't do it by yourself.
And it's important because I always listen, probably one of the hardest things, I have to say this real quick, Dana. One of the hardest things I ever experienced wasn't sitting in a prison cell. I'll be really, really honest with you all. I find it so humbling sitting in the staff space with this little group IPP. These brilliant women, smart. It's like, I'm like, how could I even stand in this space? And it's intimidating. I was with some of what's considered the worst of the worst, and they didn't scare me. They intimidated me because I'm like, man, I'm gonna drop something. But these are the people that's doing the work, so I have to be there. So I can't let fear, like my flesh be like, I'm out of here. But my spirit say, I got to fight. For perfect love cast away fear. And I want to be a part of the group that's saying to the world, we ain't just talking about it, we being about it. And within a year of its birth, it's pulling people out of prison. It has the women campaign coming. It has the veteran campaign coming. It has the solidarity confined. I mean, there's so many campaigns coming that they saying, here's what we're going to do. If you want to know what you want to make a difference, you want to stand on the stage and talk about change, then join the campaign. We got one that you can join.
That's it.
Woo. Yes.
Yeah. IPP.
IPP.
You know me.
IPP. You mean I.
So Renaldo, I hear you're an artist, and that you have an art, some talent in artistic way. Renaldo and Renaissance Renaldo.
Well,
that's good. I
can do a little painting, you know, so we got something cooking. Like, we're not gonna pull it out right now.
You're a smart artist.
Like, we're working on something. I'm absolutely not gonna do it. So thank you, Dana, for expressing that to the world. But we're working on something, and y'all have to check with Jenny about that. Jenny Sobel. Like, if you want to see that, then talk to her.
Right. Make sure you order your limited editions now. So recently, Governor Pritzker denied clemency requests to some people who have been serving very, very long sentences. And this is a question from our audience. And somebody just asked, what advice would you give to those who are struggling right now for hope?
Well, don't give up. Let me tell you, because I've had multiple clemencies filed. I mean, I don't know, I might not look like it, but I just did 37 years in prison. Okay? I've only been home, almost 9 weeks. So I knew that I had to hold on. And like I keep telling people, you better find you a rope or something, right? And say, find your North Star, whatever it is. Like, if you find your ability to lock in and say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna stop feeling sorry for myself. And this is for people in prison as well as people in the world. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Dust yourself off. Like, say, wait a minute. Like, I'm going to get into this life thing, right? Listen, a year ago, I was looking at a gun tower. I could look out my kitchen window at the Willis Tower. I'm like excited. How you going to tell me you can't do it? It's just a matter of struggling through it. You know, mud is going to come. Like, all them pretty cars is out there, mud, get on it, you wash it off. And so I'm saying, like, I'm not saying it's not going to be hard. Listen, I cried many days in prison. I won't act like I didn't. I like rolled over and like, I'm sorry, Lord, help me, please. And even to the extent where I wanted to be suicidal. I know what despair looks like. I even attempted, I don't even like sharing it with people. I even attempted to take my life. But it was a calling on my life. I didn't have the power to take it. The state couldn't take it and I couldn't take it. Because I knew and I know that I have a purpose. And everyone's still breathing. If you recognize it or not, you have a purpose. And just look around, like keep looking around, keep digging around. You're gonna find yourself if you don't despair and give up. Don't give up, please. Just don't give up. I'm an example of it. I didn't give up. And I kept, and people just start, I have an eclectic group of people that people wouldn't imagine. How did these people come together? I always tell people, like, if you saw my adopted pops, Thomas Powers, you'd be like, he don't look like me. And he was a hawk on crime, but love prevailed.
So I'm going to ask you this. So I see some of the comments in our chat that, and it's unbelievable that 10 weeks ago, your life looked completely different. Have you, what changes? I mean, can you give me any idea of what being free feels like and the adjustments that you've had to make in your life, and how does the world look to you now? 37 years ago, when you went into prison, it wasn't the same. There wasn't Facebook, there wasn't social media.
Listen, here's the best way I can put it. You see this? Can you hear that? That is glass, right? This is a glass. In prison, they don't let you touch glasses.
Yeah, right.
In prison, they try to take everything that make you feel human away from you. And so I have been living every second, appreciating every breath, every moment. I ain't taking nothing for granted. I'm smelling, I'm breathing, and I'm telling people, listen, I was ready for freedom when they called me. Listen, people don't know this, and I told Jenny know this, and she don't like me telling y'all because she said, oh, Renaldo. But look, I told her, I said, Jenny, I didn't start giving my stuff away. I gave all of my property away 30 days before they granted my clemency, because something in me was feeling like you finna go. And so I gave my winter clothes away, my cups and all kind of stuff that people, you know, begin to cherish in prison settings, right? I had no idea what this would look like. I'm not overwhelmed by freedom because I was free before I walked out of prison. I'm just in the position now to be a voice for someone else that need to be pulled out of prison. And so the transition, yes, the technological things, I'm still trying to catch up. You know, my phone is more like I don't know, it does things. I'm almost trying to propose to my phone so it'll start acting right to me, right? So that type of technology, absolutely, I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But breathing, it's easy. It's easy to breathe when you can breathe free, because in prison, all the people in prison, if you really want to think about it, are trying to breathe. They're trying to get a breath. Like George Floyd, when he was being choked, what people don't know is men and women are being choked out in cells right now. They're being choked out and they're being intimidated and they're being harassed.
And they're being choked out with COVID. Look at the huge percentage in the African-American community, poor community that are dying from COVID. My little brother died and he had the best medical care, but people are dying, not being able to breathe. George Floyd is like a salvific image of waking up our country.
Yes.
You know what? People went home. They weren't working. You know, COVID had them at home. So people watch. What the eye does not see, the heart cannot feel. For 8 minutes and 46 seconds, they watched his death. And then immediately the discussion began, well, I was a bad apple policeman, you know, it's rogue and it's systemic. And that's what George Ryan went through. He said, this thing is systemically broken, but I can do something. And he did his act of courage.
Yeah. You know, and it's so many people that goes like people don't know. I always talk about my friend Bill Ryan. You know, Bill Ryan, when he came and actually read your book, Helen, right, and was inspired to push Illinois toward a moratorium. What makes me laugh is I remember how these little ladies used to be, it's like used to be 2, 3 of them with candles, you know, every execution, every talk about something, and you would see, I said, who them? And then I found out, oh, this is the sister of this group, and this is the sister of that group. I said, oh, those nuns. They said, yeah. I said, so they care about us? And I started learning. I said, oh, I like them. I like them little ladies. I want to meet them.
That's great you call them little ladies without throwing that old in there.
Yes, ma'am.
Little.
You're doing better, Renaldo.
Yes, ma'am. I'm learning. I'm learning, sister. I'm learning. I'm trying to get better. Remember, they just let me out the cave. Don't forget that. So, you know, it's still I'm still washing some of that caveman stuff off. So you have to forgive. I'm teachable. Just bear with me a little bit. But I love it. So I seen that. I seen what is possible when someone cares. I see what's possible. Like when people collaborate. Like think about the collaboration that's occurring right now. You know, from the Well and IPP. You know, a super spiritual group of loving women and men, and a group of just people that care. I don't care what your belief is or not. I want to be a part of knocking this wall of systemic racism and systemic injustice, right? Excessive sentencing, over sentencing. We want to destroy that lie and put it in your face, because it's hard to hide once the truth come out. It's hard to hide once the lights come on. Like you can hide in the dark, right? But when they start cutting the grass, you start noticing, hey, my neighbor don't cut their grass because everybody around them do. And so you start noticing those things. So the people that's putting the work in is producing a product. For from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Yes.
And so IPP speaks by actions. The action speaks louder than words. So if you want to be a part of a group that is actively making it happen, holler at us. Hey, Sister Helen, are you down with IPP?
Yeah, you know me. That's what you're supposed to say, Sister Helen. Yeah, you know me.
Are you down with IPP?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Illinois Prison Project.
What do you mean am I down with it?
It means, do you support the movement to bring hope and change to people?
No, I hate hope. I'm all against hope. I hate the IPP. I don't know how I got drugged into this. I don't know how this. What you think, Renaldo? What you think?
I love the sound of your voice. And I know that there's others that love the sound of your voice. And when they hear you say it, see, they know I'm going to say it every chance I get.
No, right? I mean, it's groups like IPP that make things happen. And that's the way Jesus talked about the kingdom of God, you know. It was never going to be this big sweep of things. It's going to be little sprouts coming up on the ground. Little groups that get in there and do things.
Yes.
That's the future of the kingdom of God, I think, coming. Dana, she's shaking her head.
Right. Yeah, right. I'm down with IPP. But I want to talk about, before we get out of here, what efforts are going on about rehabilitation inside the prison system, or the lack of rehabilitation in the prison system. I know that clearly all lights are shining on disparities. But what efforts, what are you doing? What's IPP doing for rehab? I know, Renaldo, you instituted a program inside of the prison system. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, briefly, I will. Like, I actually wrote the blueprint for a very, very positive program called The Building Block. And what it is a program that took incarcerated men and women and said, you're the one responsible for your rehabilitation. Because the Illinois Department of Correction, with all of this talk and all of this budget, don't care if you're rehabilitated. They care if you're there for the count. They care, like, just a quick example. For 37 years, they had me in their custody. And they walked out the door, they wouldn't even give me an ID. So you let me know you didn't care about me, right? But what we did is we started talking to our peers and each other about accountability, responsibility, ownership, community, and empathy. Respect, responsibility, ownership, community, and empathy. Those are the principles of the building block program. And within that space, we would talk about finding yourself. We would talk about did trauma and loss, like how many of people in prison are victims of trauma and compound trauma. We had the youth think tank. The youth think tank was young men talking about their issues. And so I made it my business to say to all the elder brothers, you can't go to those youth groups without them inviting you into the space, which empowered the young men to say, we have something that we're in control of, and it's positive, right?
So good.
And so it's so much. We were about to roll our program out across the state, actually, until COVID-19 hit, because once again, it was us teaching us. We did tutoring classes, from ABE to GED to college. We had the veteran program where we were taking veterans and reminding them about the principles that they pledged to the military, that they could teach young men principles, teach men how to make their beds. So we began to say to people, when you wake up in the morning, make your bed. Why is it important to make your bed? It's important to make your bed because that's the start of your day. And if you start accomplishing something little, you can begin to see bigger things. And so those were the principles of our program. That's what we were practicing. Before I left, it only slowed down because of COVID-19. But I'm so proud of that program. And I'm actually thinking about how to implement portions of it on this side.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Boy, is that, you know what, Renaldo? You make this connection for us. From the little girl in yellow with the umbrella on the salt box to a BA degree. You want to say a little bit about that little girl dressed in yellow with the umbrella?
So many. Hey, Helen, you know what? I'm finding out you're a good investigator. Like, you just know so much. I'm feeling like so vulnerable right now. But one of the things that I used to do as a functioning illiterate, my father had no idea I couldn't read. He had no idea. And I know now that he had issues as well. But anyway, when my father would send me to get stuff from the store, I would purchase things based upon my memory. And so I knew which salt to get because I remembered the only salt box that would be in the house was this little girl with this yellow raincoat and this umbrella. So I said, that's the right one. And so I would be like, and so I was able to continue the myth, the lie of my brokenness because no one was able to see it.
Yeah, sure.
It was only when I was sitting in a prison cell, like when people talk about the confession, when people talk about the details, right? I was manipulated. I was tricked to tell the story that they wanted to hear, which was the worst possible version of what happened.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of manipulation, and I don't try to like justify and say to people, listen, that is the way they manipulated me to express this. Mm-hmm. It's the simple truth is I'm the person responsible. Now you process all the stuff that was manipulated, etc. My job is to be better. My job is to never let anything like that happen again or to anyone around me. I'm a protector of humanity today. My job today is to represent the hope that exists within my bones.
Yeah.
And that's what I love. That's what I love, the fact that, yes, Helen, I love the fact that reminding people that I couldn't even read.
Yeah.
And they said.
And you have a way of surviving. You don't want people to know that you can't read. So you learn how to survive. If I point to one thing, see, you did a lot of things, the building block thing where you help people share, like the young people, and heal. You have healing to do when you've been traumatized and all. But literacy, being able to read and then being able to articulate. Didn't you start a prison paper? Didn't y'all have a newspaper?
Actually, it was me and Bill Ryan, right, which is my buddy.
Oh, yeah.
I always remind people, like, I have to go and watch a sunset with Bill Ryan, because one of the things I used to always tell him is that when I walk out of prison, I want to sit on a porch and watch a sunset with you, my friend. I love this dude, right? He's the funniest dude in the world if you see him. But it's like, when we got off of death row, I was like, Bill, like, what we gonna do, man? There's so much hopelessness here. Like, I was at Stateville, and me or none of my peers had a voice. We didn't have any platform to express ourselves. And so me and Bill started talking. I'm like, hey man, let's do something. Let's do a paper. And which also ultimately we ended up with a little book that people don't know exists, called Lockdown Prison Heart, which is a book that we produced of essays, which in fact was the only essay contest in the history of Illinois Department of Corrections, where the Department of Correction allowed prisoners in every facility to participate in the contest. Helen, you actually wrote in that book too, right?
If you say I did, I did.
Yeah, you did. I saw
did.
it.
Did I say
It's
something?
there. But this is the beautiful thing. All the proceeds from that book went to Murder Victims for Reconciliation. And so one of the things that I love, like, one of my dear friends is Jennifer Bishop Jenkins, who was at one time the National Director of Victims' Rights. And people tried to understand, why were we friends? I continue to be friends with her because of love. I keep telling people I'm a bridge builder, and I understand the necessity of maintaining bridges. And the only way we're going to win is that we walk on bridges with buckets of waters, because there's enough people that's going to set fires. We have to be about putting them out so that we can cross back and forth and have the hard conversations. IPP is bridge builders. And they get into them spaces where they can talk, right? And that's what I'm doing. I want to be in a space where I can have a conversation with people that we don't agree when we started, but we can agree to disagree. And then we can agree on the things that we agree, so that we can move to the next degree, right? And so that's what I keep trying to get people to see, that it's not that hard if we just come together and reach out to each other. So bridge building, not bridge burning.
There you go.
I like it. A word. I have a question from the audience. There are 55,000 people serving life sentences in the United States right now. What role do you think the efforts to eliminate the death penalty might have on the effort to end life without parole? See any overlap?
Helen, would you like to take that one on?
Well, absolutely. And Pope, you got Pope Francis on your side too, with the whole thing of it's another kind of death sentence. One is directly the state's going to kill you. The other is you're going to have death in prison without any hope. The energy, and it's already, you can already see it happening. You're already beginning to hear more and more these magical words, restorative justice, instead of just punitive, retributive justice. Where do we come into the thing that a penal system has to be about punishing people and exiling them and separating them from their families? I was so astounded when I visited a women's prison in Dublin, Ireland. And when I went into it and was talking with the ward, he said, you know what our biggest challenge is? The women don't want to leave. As you walk into the prison, you see children's play equipment there, and they had counseling, they had medical care, they had job training. It was restorative. You made a mistake, but what is it in your life that was broken that led to this? And so they have an alumni. They have the women who come back for meetings because they formed community and they were loved. We are just beginning to wake up about that road. Now we hear this is the first time we've had a political candidate run for president, all the Democratic candidates, against the death penalty. So you can't just say you're against death. What are you for? And it's restorative justice. Let's make prisons places of life, being restored back to life, and then moving back into society. So, but the kingdom of God comes in little bits at first. You know, as Pope John the 23rd told us in the Vatican reforms, you got to look at the signs of the times and look and see where things are changing. And more now we hear politicians talk about smart on crime instead of tough on crime. And the way we even got the death penalty and all this life without parole and 3 strikes and you're out was all that fierce rhetoric of these people are such monsters and are so evil and so bad. All we can do is throw them away. And people were made to be afraid. And if people are made to be afraid, we participate with our government in doing terrible things to people. You know, lock them up and throw away the key. All that mentality, all through the 80s, all through the 90s, when EDPA, the anti-death penalty, anti-terrorism and effective death penalty.
The Anti-Terrorist Act.
Thank you.
Yes.
So that they made it just hard. But now, and you know what's the connection? You know what changes things? Is when people like Bill Ryan, when people like an IPP, individuals like me with the nuns, go into prisons, meet people, you go, those are not monsters, those are human beings. And take away my privileges and my resources, I could very well be in there as well. And you have that connection of human beings in which compassion can be born. So we are beginning to take the steps, like Jesus said, look, you said 4 months and the harvest will come. Look at the white of the harvest, it's beginning. And that's what fuels our hope. Mm-hmm. That fuels hope because we have to just not dwell on the negative. We have to look at where life is springing up and we got to be part of that. That's my little short speech on that.
Absolutely.
Renaldo,
Listen,
you want to
love
add?
that. Thank you, Helen. That is so powerful. Dana, absolutely. Because one of the things that I'm learning is that people need to hear our stories because then they see our humanity. And that's why I love one of the programs that I'm actually, I have the responsibility of making sure it runs, which is the ambassador program for IPP. Mm-hmm. The ambassador program is a program where men and women had sentences of life without the possibility of parole. Imagine this. You had some drugs. You didn't murder someone like Renaldo Hudson, right? You robbed someone and they did not get hurt. You did a burglary. You right. Stuck up a liquor store. And these men and women doing 30 and 40 years. And so we have ambassadors now that we send out and invite, like anyone that would love to hear some of the stories, I invite you to reach out and say, I want to hear some of these stories. And so when you start hearing these stories, what happens is you see the humanity and you see the crime committed against these people. Yeah. Right. By people who are paid for by taxpayers. Right. The state's attorneys in every county in the United States of America are representatives of the people. And I'm now a taxpayer as well. Right. And so I want to make sure when I speak that, wait a minute, why do you have a 3 strikes law and not a parole system that would say, okay, but when you meet this mark, we're going to give you another chance. You just said, no, we're going to throw away the key because we are getting tough on crime. And with all respect to old Bill, like Bill Clinton them, and the truth in sentencing and the get tough on crime and the anti-reform bill and all the stuff that they did under the threat of terrorists, because they said there's a terrorist threat. And then they ripped away the appeals of prisoners, death row prisoners, and prisoners all across the United States, right? So my point is, the way we're gonna win this is we have to invite the ambassadors out. We have to invite Helen back and have conversations where people see the humanity of these people. When you see these women that rarely get voice. One of the things that I'm really, really passionate about is reminding people, yes, the brothers, and I'm glad that I was helped, right? Yay. But there's some sisters that's sitting in prison that shouldn't be there. And so I want to remind people, encourage, like reach out to IPP. They have a woman campaign, right? And so you'll learn actually what's going on with these women in prisons all over America. Sure. In Illinois, more specifically in the case of IPP, but they need voice. So the governor needs to know hey, listen, look at these cases. Why are these people still in prison for all these years? You know, there are going to be denials because that's a human attribute that's going to happen. Some people will get left, but we want to make sure we do all that we can to ensure that everyone get a shot at it.
Yeah.
Everyone should have a sense of hope because that makes it safer for staff in prison, right? When I know I got a little hope, I'm gonna be different about the way I
Sure.
treat people.
Yeah.
But if I feel like there's nothing to lose, then I'll be more inclined to act like an animal. It's only when people come and show love, that's what made me really start loving, because I saw love. I said, wait a minute, all white people don't hate me? You mean all white people are not devils?
No,
I had to learn this.
And Renaldo, what happens to the correctional officers where you have this punitive system wherein their training has happened in Louisiana? I hope it's different now, where they're trained. These people, you cannot trust them. Don't share any personal stories from your life.
Yeah.
They're going to try to con you. So it's based on distrust.
Yes.
Based on watch them, because they're going to try to get the best of you.
Yeah.
And through all these years that I've worked in the prison, I've heard amazing stories of the correctional officers, like Eddie Saunier. He's the brother of Pat Saunier, who was executed. He had 2 life sentences. He's Cajun. Man, he loved his Cajun, like his boudin and his andouille sausage and stuff, man. And he would just talk about, oh man, how it. And one day, with one of the correctional officers, this is definitely against the rules, and he opened up his lunchbox and he said, hey, Eddie, come here. And Eddie looked down, and don't you know, he had some boudin there. This is seasoned sausage, man. I hate to be talking about it without eating it. It's so good. And so you saw that humanity happening.
Yes.
And the way I witnessed it too in Sergeant Cootie, who was the supervisor on death row, until then they moved him on to the execution squad. And his job then, it wasn't directly to strap people in the chair, but his job was to go to the person's cell after they'd been executed and put their stuff in a paper bag to give back to their family. And after he had been through 5 executions, Renaldo, he called me in his office and he said, sister, I'm gonna have to quit this job. Mm-hmm. He said, because I know them all. They have done crimes that can just make your blood run cold. But I see the little boy in them. I see the child that never had a chance. And then to be close to part of the rendering them defenseless, I come back home after these executions and I sit in my lazy boy chair and I don't eat and I can't speak to anybody. My wife knows not to talk to me after these executions, because in my gut, I know I helped kill somebody who was made defenseless. He's the only man I met, from the governor on down, on all the people, who quit his job because of his conscience, because there was that connection. And when people are made to be afraid, it's separation. See, the charism of our sisters is St. Joseph, and it's really the heart of the gospel of Jesus, to connect with each other. We're human beings together. You know, the Declaration of Human Rights is about our common humanity, which we have. Because once you connect with a person and says that person's a human being, you can't kill them. But people on the outside, the reason I wrote Dead Man Walking was I said, they're never going to get close to this. What the eye doesn't see, the heart can't feel. I've been a witness. So that's why I wrote that book. And in writing that story, I also had to talk about my mistakes, because I didn't do it perfectly. In the beginning, I didn't know what to do with the victims' families. I stayed away from the victims' families. Pat Saunier and his brother Eddie had in cold-blooded killed 2 innocent teenage kids. They found lying face down near a harvested sugarcane field, and they'd both been shot in the back of the head. That was their crime. And you know, here I'm visiting this man on death row, but I just stayed away from the victim's family. One in particular was so angry. And the father of the girl would get on the media and he'd just say, I want to pull the switch myself. So it was my editor my editor at Random House, Jason Epstein, when he's helping me with Dead Man Walking and to shape the story. And when I came to that part about, well, I had never done this before, I didn't know how to handle the victim's family, he looked me right in the eye. He said, well, it was cowardice, wasn't it, Helen? You were scared, weren't you? Oh, yeah. He said, look, when you write your book, don't just take people on the peaks of the waves where you did it all right. Take people with you into your mistakes, because then they'll trust you as a human being and they'll read your book. But if they have this feeling you're trying to spin everything like you did it all right, you know, so in the telling of our stories, it's just really important that we share those things too with each other where we did it wrong, you know.
Yeah. I think, Helen, I think it's so important that you making me cry. Like I thought I was gonna make it through an event without crying. And it's like the humanity and what people don't realize is that there's so many hurt, broken people, hurt people, you
Yeah.
know, and until people start recognizing, like I always try to say to people who are victims of crime, like in behalf of everyone that don't have the ability to say they sorry, I'm sorry, you
Yeah.
know, that I wasn't a decent enough human being to appreciate your humanity, you know, and I feel duty bound. You know, there's a scripture in the Bible that teaches me, and I always live with it. It says that Jesus looked out among them and he saw the sheep scattered and he cried. And he said, I pray that you pray that the Lord of the harvest would send more laborers, for the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. And so I always think about that. That's why I did not hesitate when Jenny asked me, like, would I come and work with IPP? I didn't hesitate because I wanted to be one of the laborers. I
Yes.
wanted to be a witness to people to say, you know, if you need to throw a shot at me and say, you guilty murdering person, then throw it at me. Because I could live through that. I couldn't live through that poison of an executioner. But I could live through a word if you need to get that poison out of you.
Mm-hmm.
But unforgiveness is poison.
Yeah.
Holding someone in your heart, you know, it's a form of poison and it has to be flushed.
Yeah.
And the only way people heal really isn't with the death of someone. It's just not, in my opinion, because I can't tell people how they should heal.
Yeah.
But I know what worked for me.
But you know what, Renaldo? You know who the hero of Dead Man Walking is? It's not me. I'm the storyteller, and I made a bad mistake with the victim's family. It's the father of the boy David who was killed by Patrick and Eddie Saunier. And
Yes.
he, when I first met him, and he said, Sister, all this time you've been going to see those brothers, and you didn't come once to see us. You can't believe the pressure we're under to be for the death penalty. Later, he told me what the pressure was. People were actually saying to him, Lloyd, you got to be for the death penalty or it'll look like you didn't love David. So when the culture all around you is saying the way you honor your dead loved one is to ask for death, and he didn't have any support. So that was one of the things that I had made a mistake and I wasn't there for him. And when he shared his journey is in Dead Man Walking, and that is the healing part. He taught me, and if you even look at that word, forgive, to give before. And he was filled with hatred at first and wanted to kill Patrick and Eddie with his own bare hand. But he noticed something was happening to me. You just talked about poison. He noticed something had happened to him, and it was that he was filled with anger all the time. He's snapping at his wife and making her cry, and his daughter Vicky. And he's praying. He's going, Jesus, you got to help me. And then when he explained this moment, he put his hand up like this to me. And then he said, I said to myself, they killed my boy, but I'm not going to let them kill me.
Mm.
And then he began to make his way that the love in him would not be overcome by the hate, and he would continue to be a loving man. And that was saving grace. And the mother of Patrick and Eddie Saunier, who had done these murders of these teenage kids, their mother couldn't even go into the grocery store because she'd hear people saying loud enough for her to hear.
Yeah.
There's that white trash woman, the mother of the murderers. And one day she hears somebody on her front porch. People were throwing dead animals on her front porch. Teenagers were riding around her apartment yelling, "Mother the murderers, mother the murderers," and the shame on her. And she opens her blind. She sees somebody on her front porch. She opens the door, and it's Lloyd LeBlanc, the father of David, who had been killed. He has a basket of fruit, and he hands it to her. And he said, "Miss Sonia, I know you're having a tough time in this town. Look, I'm a parent just like you. As parents, we never really know what our kids might do. I don't hold you responsible for the death of our boy. And here's my number. If you need me, you call me." And he came to her funeral. He was present at her funeral. So the compassion and love of who he was not overcome by the evil. And forgive means you give before. It doesn't mean you condone. He said people think forgiveness is weak, like you condoning what they did. You kill my son, it's okay. Just means you give before. The love won't be overcome. And that's God's grace in us, isn't it?
Yes, thank you.
Great story,
Absolutely.
Sister Helen. For sure, I'm certain that we could talk all day. I certainly could listen all day. But we need to kind of wrap it up. Sister Helen, could you, is there anything that you would like to share before we wrap it up? And then I'll ask you, Renaldo, I have 2 questions for you.
What I would say is that when we gather like this, no matter that we can't physically be in a room together, we are within sound of each other's voices and we are present to each other. And the most precious thing we can do with each other as human beings is when we open our mouths and share our inner life with each other. That is the most precious thing in the world. And grace happens as our consciousness is changed and we wake up and our conscience, that what is this conversation calling me to today, including myself in this, from this conversation together, what am I called to do? And so it's where life dwells. It's the inner life of our democracy and our country and our spiritual lives. We gather in community, we share our inner life, and we walk out of there strengthened because we built community with each other.
Yes, I often say your testimony is probably the most important thing out of your mouth. So don't ever be afraid to share that.
And just to thank the Well and IPP for this, because the Well makes things like this happen, of gathering people together so that we can share this. I'm proud of this program, our sisters have.
Yeah.
And IPP.
Yes. And Kirkland and Ellis. And any of you who want to support this mission, feel free. I'm sure that we'll provide a link for you if it's on your heart to give. Any gift is welcome.
Yeah, amen to that.
And we'll move this project forward. And clearly, we can see the great works that IPP is responsible for. So be a part of the solution. So Mr. Hudson, before we get out of here, I know there's anything you want to wrap it up, but first, I just have to ask, what was the first meal that you had when you got out?
A cheeseburger, what'd you have?
Pretty much. the first
What's
free
the
thing.
first thing that you really wanted? Oh,
Well, what I really wanted was chicken and dumplings.
oh, okay.
And I was taken to this restaurant and I am so embarrassed. I can't think, I think it's Percy's Place or something. It's in, but anyway, they made these chicken and dumplings and I didn't really enjoy it. And so I'm still waiting on my chicken and dumplings.
Man, I cooked that real good, Renaldo. Man,
Hey, listen, we got to work that out, right?
We are gonna work that out.
Listen, before I go, Helen, listen, I got to tell you, I know they be talking about Renaldo, we got to go. I just cooked a pot of chili, like sitting there. I wish I could
show you.
Oh, I wish I could show you because it's like
We see the stove. We see the stove. Okay. We believe we're gonna end. We're gonna wrap
I
it up.
let it
with
warm up some. Can you smell it?
Oh yeah. Okay. I mean, look all the
Yummy.
gospels, all the meals.
Hey,
that
I'm
they
sorry,
have together.
but listen, I'm so excited that I get to cook, right? And so
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
cooked it this morning. I got up and I was thinking about the event today, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna cook some chili, and I start
Yeah.
cutting onions and all that stuff.
It's so
But
great.
but anyway, so to answer that direct question, I really am still waiting on my chicken and dumplings and
Okay.
some crackling cornbread.
Well, I don't know how to do
I
that.
don't know about that. I don't know about that either.
Yeah.
Okay, so
But I
then,
know how
but
to
we'll
do
talk
chicken
more
and
about that. So
Okay.
yes, but I've had like some really wonderful meals, and I'm enjoying. I keep telling everybody every second. I don't take anything for granted, and I haven't put anything off the menu yet.
Okay, great.
What's your second question?
Well, and before I give that to you, I also am remiss by I need to thank the handmaidens as well for being a part of making this
Yeah, thank you, sister.
this conversation real. Thank you, sisters. And just the second question is wrap it up for us. Inspire us on the way out of this conversation this afternoon, Mr. Hudson.
Well, here's the thing I really want to say, because I don't just want to inspire you. I want to encourage you and give you some application. And so when we do those events like this, one of the things people have to, I believe, have to really come away with is, what can I now do? Right. And so I would encourage people to reach out to the well. All the sisters in the well, Bridget, hey, you my girl now. Don't be like playing. You better call me. Like, so all the sisters over in the well, like, quit playing. I ain't gonna say it enough times. The well, the well, the well. I love y'all, right? And I love IPP the most. But anyway, this is so important, like, cause like, hey, it's serious, right? But look, I want people to know that you can do something. If you don't have a lot, you may be able to volunteer. If you want to do something, you may want to sponsor a clemency. One of the things about IPP is they do clemency campaigns. So you may want to come along and say, I will sponsor the veterans campaign. I will sponsor the women's campaign. I will sponsor, Sister Helen, I would love for you to touch back with us about some of these things. I would sponsor, right, the segregation. You know, they have people who are mentally challenged and they're locking them away. You know, so you have the campaign to deal with those issues. It's so many things that you can do. So you can sponsor. If you're a lawyer, you may do a clemency. If you a good reader, you may do some reading. If you have a couple bucks, you can say, you know what, I love what the well is doing. I want to make sure it's secure. I love what IPP is doing. I want to make sure it's secure. And so from $5 to $1 million, I keep telling people, I'm not ashamed to ask, right? Oh. I know that without, listen, I am about to get my first car. I know that it will not move without gas. And this movement do not move without gas. And so I have to remind people, it's not shameless. It's actually a shame to not say, ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock on the door shall be open. And so I'm asking, so I'm expecting to receive. And so if you're out there and you know you want to be a part of bringing someone out, if you want to be a part of saying, hey, listen, I want to be a part of the love mission. Hard work is hard work, right? Yeah. We're doing this work. So I want to inspire people to say, hey, listen, I could be the person that bring the next Renaldo or Sharon out of prison, right? By my work. I'm going to pray for everyone. I'm going, you know, if that's all you got, then give us the prayer, right? But if you have the nickel, the dime, all that, I'm saying, please help in any way that you can. But more than anything, be inspired to do the right thing.
Yeah, we getting a call to end with a prayer.
I know.
We are.
I'm sorry, Jenny.
You're great. I turned my video on to cut you off.
Okay.
Thank you all so much. And I will be the first to pledge to the IPP project because I believe in what they're doing. Yeah, and I invite you, please, to join me this afternoon. I want to thank Mr. Renaldo Hudson and Sister Helen Prejean for an amazing conversation and shining some light on how important it is to build bridges instead of burning bridges. And I look forward to all the great works that both of these champions are doing. And I just invite you again to be a champion yourself and be a part of the solution. Make a difference.
Thank you, Dana.
Yay.
Thank you guys so much. I'm Jenny Sobel. I'm the executive director and founder of the Illinois Prison Project. There are no words to express how grateful we are to Sister Helen and Renaldo and Dana for your time and your wisdom. And especially, I want to thank you guys for ending on something funny, because I've been sobbing for the last hour. So you gave me a moment to compose myself. Please follow us on social media. Please follow The Well. Please share these stories. You can contribute financially, but also people don't understand this problem. And so a huge thing that you can do is tell 5 people what you heard today. We will have, this recording will be available at some point. Share it, share our website, share our social media, share our stories. We're going to end today with a prayer by Sister Kathy Sherman, who I think folks from The Well are really know very well, and we're really excited to get to know. And so with that, thank you guys so much. Thank you for spending your Saturday with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And on behalf of IPP and the Congregation of St. Joseph and The Well, we thank you so much for this incredible morning. To what Jenny was just saying, I feel the same way. I feel this depth that it's almost hard to put into words. And so it's a custom through the Spirituality Center that when we have been blessed, as we certainly have been blessed this morning, that we want to bless you. And the song is called May the Greatest Love. And what I'm aware of is in this time we've been together this morning, we have experienced the greatest love. So evidenced in the stories that both Renaldo and Helen, you have shared with us. You are calling us to this greatest love that makes all things possible. So please receive this blessing now. And thank you for your witness, your courage, and for helping us to hopefully be transformed as well.
May the greatest love the world has ever known seize you, inspire, set your hearts on fire, and dare you to be bold. With wisdom to be told. May the neighborhood of our sacred universe be carried and treasured, embraced inside of you, that all may be one. For a future yet to come, this we ask, this we pray, as we bless you this day.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you all.